Hello and welcome to the first video on my channel. Today I want to talk to you about a ship that I already built and that I've already driven and gotten a little bit of footage of, and that has already burned down. Quite spectacularly so. Unfortunately I don't have footage of that, but it looked amazing. Insert artist rendering here. So I never named this boat, and I think it would be a little bit weird to give it a name now, so I'm just gonna call it boat. So boat was made out of foam board, at least its hull was. It was 80 centimeters long, about 25 centimeters wide. The hull itself with the pedals on its side, about 5 centimeters each, like 35 centimeters. It was, I don't know, it had like a freeboard of 3 centimeters with the funnel and everything. Was probably like, I don't fucking know, let's say 25 centimeters. I didn't take measurements. I could do it right now, but I don't want to. The funnels and everything, like the upper works, were all collapsible, which is very nice, and you can even take off the water. So the cool thing about boat is it's a remote controlled boat made out of incredibly cheap materials. I think I paid a sum total of nothing for it. But if you were to buy the foam board, the main material costs like €2 for a square meter sheet. It's called styrodor. It's for like home insulation stuff. And it's very easy to work with. You can just take a semi-sharp knife and some sandpaper and make basically everything out of here. Here are some pictures of funny things that I made out of it. So yeah, boat was powered with a D5 steam engine. D5 is in Dampfmaschine Nummer 5 by Vilesco. And the D5 is basically the cheapest, shittiest model they brought out. It has no pressure controls. It doesn't have a throttle. You can't even see how much water is in there. It's quite dodgy, let's say. And I got it many years ago for way too much money. But you can find steam engines like that readily online. I put this engine on a ship, on a little boat, on a moving platform, by just hacking all the base, hacking the steam line in two, and using copper tubing, 2 millimeter OD, 1.5 millimeter ID copper tubing for all the new steam lines. I just soldered these copper lines to the already original copper lines. Yeah, they are copper, but like with shiny stuff on it. I forgot what it's called. Chromed. Yeah, they are chromed copper. You'd expect that soldering to it would be quite easy, but I had a fucking horrible time. So don't be like me and use flux. And also don't be like me and use a fucking like computer soldering hot iron thing. Like use proper soldering equipment if you have it. But it's not a big deal. I believe if you just jam enough Teflon tape in there and use some duct tape, you could probably get a pressure seal. Don't quote me on that. I don't believe that would actually work. So yeah, I put the boiler assembly at the front. Important is, I just forgot, if you hack it off, it doesn't have a floor anymore. So I made a floor by taking a bit of hardwood, wrapping it in aluminum foil, and screwing the boiler onto it. It works. It works good enough. So yeah, I mean, it worked until it didn't, and when it didn't, it burned down. So maybe don't follow that piece of advice. But the hardwood was not the problem. The boiler had some other modifications, and part of that I just chopped it in part away. For example, I removed the original funnel assembly housing thingy and made a new one. As you can see here, it's made out of wood. You would think that may be the reason why it burned down, but it wasn't. I mean, it eventually also burned. But no, we will get to that. We will get to the little mystery. The idea here was to funnel the exhaust gases around the boiler to give me a little bit more exposure to it, to give me a little bit more efficiency, and to also insulate the boiler itself, so to minimize heat loss to the atmosphere. Also, very important is it funnels it to the chimney, which, as an engineer, I could now claim, oh yeah, with a high chimney we have updraft, and this way you have higher flame temperatures. In reality, it just looks cool, and coolness is important, especially in model boats. Like, the entire reason we make things is for aesthetics. When people comment, are like, nah, that's just for aesthetic reasons. Everything we do is for aesthetic reasons. Come on, this is a stupid fucking hobby. So yeah, it looks cute. I mean, look at this. Isn't this adorable? Yeah, that's basically all the modifications to the boiler assembly. Oh yeah, one another thing is I modified the steam whistle thing with like a little hole, so you can move it with a little iron rod to operate the steam whistle remotely. But we will get to that later. The engine, well, I also took that off of its base. So I had to make a new base out of a bit of wood, and I just screwed it on there. And originally I used hot glue for some reason. Little pro tip: if you are handling a steam engine where you have things above the boiling temperature of water, you may not want to use hot glue. It gets hot and then it doesn't glue anymore. So do not do that. Also, if you use wood lime or wood glue, watch out that it's actually watertight wood glue. I've had some weird problems with, like, there's moisture in it. It's fucking steam. What do you expect? And these 5 engines, they just throw condensation everywhere. It's a fucking mess. You can also see here in this little picture that I later added a little screen on the side so the electronics don't get exposed so much to the water vapor, but it is still a concern. As I mentioned earlier, the D5 is a pretty shit engine. It is very cheap. You don't have any controls or anything. But it's also the engine part itself. It only works on a push stroke. The way is the entire piston like walks up and down and has like holes. One hole for steam in and one hole for steam out to the atmosphere. And the momentum wheel, what it's called, the flywheel, moves the piston up and down, and when it aligns it pushes out, and when it doesn't align it doesn't. This way we get like, I don't know, 100 degrees of thrust, which is like a third of it. With such a small engine displacement, that's basically nothing. So we need to scour for every little bit of efficiency that we can get. As in, smear the entire thing to the brim with oil. Try to make it as leak-proof as possible, which I didn't manage to. Oil can fix leaks, If there's already oil, the steam won't go through it. But if you add too much oil and you flood the piston, you just lose what little bit of displacement you still had. So, yeah, keep that within reason. The steam engine then connected via a belt, which was just a hair tie, to a bigger little wheel. So I'm stepping down the speeds of rotation because it doesn't have any fucking torque. So we do need that actually. Then it goes on a central axis, amidship. The idea of putting it amidship was something regarding stability, but I can't recall. I don't think it actually has to be amidship, but if you look at historic ships of that type, it's always amidship, so let's do that. It's a wooden shaft, a wooden axle, which uses basically metal bolts of like an IKEA bed frame or something, for which the axle goes through, and it has some friction, unfortunately, and that's kind of why this ship failed eventually. Just the wood rubbing on iron, that's a little bit of friction there. Then you have the water resistance and whatnot, so it didn't run beautifully. When it no wait, I retract that. It ran fucking beautifully. It was super pretty and super cute and adorable. I mean, look at this. But it was very slow, which again, also very good. I think it just adds to the scaling, and it's adorable and cute and whatnot. But yeah, a lot of the time it just didn't run for inexplicable reasons. Like the moment I had just a pinhole leak somewhere in my shitty solder, no chance. It was like on the weekend that I did the proper driving tests. On the first day it drove amazing. The second day didn't drive at all. The third day I tried for like an hour, and then finally it drove, and then it turned onto. Then something happened, and it burned down. So, the thing is a remote-controlled boat. The DeFi, the entire Steam thing can't really be controlled because we don't have any valves or whatnot. You could probably install solenoids, but either overkill or it's just gonna fuck you over in a different way. But so we have no control over this speed. Or do we? We have a little bit of control because I thought we have a steam whistle. So let's just make the steam whistle remotely controllable. So I added a metal rod which goes through another one of those copper pipes. It's a 1mm rod going through 1.5 inner diameter pipe. So it kind of works like those brakes you have in bicycles where you can push and pull and it doesn't flex. If I didn't use this metal, this housing essentially, it wouldn't have worked. I could have probably used string, but you don't want to use string close to the fucking engine because it's gonna burn down. And not the engine, the boiler. So that, and I didn't want to put the servo too close because I don't want my servo to melt. So there was like a little bit distance. You can also see what I mentioned earlier, this enclosure of the servo from the vapors of the main engine. Because yeah, I don't trust these cheap 15 gram AliExpress servos. I don't think they last well at over 100 degrees. It's a 2-channel ship. The other vector of control is the rudder. The rudder is a very straightforward assembly. We have an axle, wooden axle, which goes onto which wooden rudder is attached. The rudder is just made of like plywood and then sanded down. And this connects via a little push-pull shaft to another 15 gram servo. The cool thing about this construction method is that the rudder itself can be easily removed from the assembly, or you can put an axle through it and then just flip it up and down, which helps you a lot when you need to take it out of the water and put it into the water again. So you can make an oversized rudder, which goes below the keel, and you can still put it on the ground. The entire assembly is also easily removable. It's just like a few screws, or you just pull enough, because nothing about foam board is very sturdy, which is good. I really like this material. If you just need something to try out, foam board is fucking amazing. You can't get crazy details, you can't get it to be pretty, but it's incredibly cheap, it's incredibly easy to work. It makes a fucking mess though, so be concerned about that. So yeah, we have two servos. Those two servos go into remote control, into a receiver. This receiver is powered by a lithium-ion battery, a 2-cell battery. And because 2-cell batteries run on voltages between 7.3 volts and I believe 11 or 12 volts. I'm not quite sure. Google it yourself, I guess. I'm using a little voltage control thingy chip thing in between to step it down to a solid 6 volts, so I don't fry my electronics. Yeah, that's essentially the entire system of the ship. Now, why did it burn down? Why did this ship... well, it didn't sink. There were a few problems that I faced, which gave me a headache. Firstly, I spent many days just trying to get the steam engine to work in this configuration. The steam pipes that I just soldered onto, it was a fucking pain to get it to not leak and to be sturdy and whatnot. So that's something you should be afraid of. In my current project, I'm using threaded stuff. Like I'm threading copper pipes to M4, M3, and using Teflon, but it's not working currently either. So look out for updates. Yay. So that's the one problem, like leaks. Another problem which really I fixed was drifting. I added a keel by just taking a very long saw, like one of those Japanese fancy saws, and cutting a slot along the entire length of the ship. at the bottom, and I put a little wooden strip in there, which I then secured with, I don't know, hot glue or something. It doesn't really matter. And this little strip helped a lot with stability, so the ship actually went straight, which is a good thing, because those paddle wheels were not symmetrical or centered or anything, so it definitely needed that. But overall, it went pretty well. Like, I didn't, if I set the water trim correctly, which I think was like a few degrees off port, it would go at its little walking pace and be cute and jolly and amazing. Yeah, the biggest problem with this entire boat. Oh yeah, there was another problem. I had to add an emergency shut-off switch for reasons. Originally, I didn't have that, and every time I wanted to shut down the engine, I had to pull it out. Problem was, sometimes the servo motor, which controlled the steam whistle, would just jam open, or I had problems with that while I was working on something different. So I'm trying to get the steam to rise, and suddenly the thing is shut open, and I need to get my remote control, and all my steam is out. So shut off so you can close stuff, so you can disconnect things safely, is generally advised. Especially if you run something directly with electricity, you want to shut off stuff, because you don't want the shut off to be your hands in a propeller, because that hurts until it doesn't. But it's good if it hurts. It's not good if you don't have fingers that hurt anymore. Though then there's phantom pain and whatnot. Anyways, yeah, and the biggest problem, and the thing that I've been teasing, the reason why this ship sunk: wind. There are 5 penetrations into the firebox. There's the big, like, front thing where you put the fuel in. I used a barbecue lighter stuff. It's basically like it's like cubes. It's like a big block of weird stuff. It's made out of wax or paraffin, and it burns quite long, quite hot, and has a nice big flame, and it's perfect. Only problem is it soot like crazy, so soot build up is annoying. But on the other side, is that a bad thing? Because soot means you have big, black, and visible smoke, which looks cool and amazing. It's not good for the environment, but it looks cute. But yeah, you may have to scrape the bottom of the boiler from time to time, and maybe go into these ducts on the side to get that cleared. Yeah, problem is this stuff, it burns very well. It likes to burn. So through the big penetrations on the front or the sides, if there's wind coming in, especially through the big hole in the front, the fire may not want to go up. It may want to go outside of those ventilation holes on the sides, or go in, or wind could come in from there. So that's a big concern. If you build a ship like this, I highly recommend just adding a little door in front of the things, adding a windscreen of some sort. And that's what I did. I built a windscreen made out of balsa wood, and I added like aluminum foil on one side so it doesn't burn. Theoretically, it did burn. So what happened was, I put this boat into the water after fiddling with it for like 20 minutes to finally get it to start, and I drove it out like 5 meters, did a turn, and then there was a gust of wind. The gust of wind blew directly into the firebox and gave me a very big flame on the side. I thought, okay, that's not good. If this continues to burn for like a few seconds, my ship will be on fire. So I tried to get to turn away. I fucked up, and I turned into the wind and made it much, much worse. So there was this huge, like 20 centimeter flame. I turned away. I tried to get back to shore. The flame just already engulfed the entire thing. The wind got worse as I turned into it, and suddenly the entire boiler and all the boiler assembly, all the wood around it, all those struts were highly ablaze. Like, they catched fire like crazy. And the foam board actually melted. So the ship, it was very funny. When the ship arrived, like a few seconds later, I had the front bit, I had the back bit, and in the middle there was just nothing left. It was just the boiler kind of sitting on the keel and all the molten plasticky stuff. So that was fun. And I just looked at it and was like, should I? It looks funny. Should I take a picture or should I put the fire out? Unfortunately, I decided to put it out because, why? I should have taken a picture. It looked so cool and it was already gone anyways. A nice thing, I was concerned about the potentiality of fire, and I was concerned about how expensive electronics are. So I put all the electronic things a little bit back. My idea was we do all the firing of the oven at the front part. So if, for example, doing fueling, something falls out and there's like little fire in front of the oven, the bow is not safe, especially with waves and whatnot. So I put the lithium-ion batteries and everything on the back, and they stayed perfectly safe. The boat, even while completely ablaze and while everything was melting and burning, was still chugging along very joyfully. The whistle was sounding, which looked so cute. Like, you just have to imagine a huge flame and then a little whistle going, weep, weep. Just amazing. The funnel collapsed and whatnot. So, yeah, what do we learn about that? Shield your firebox from wind. Definitely. Don't use wood in extreme proximity to fire. Yeah, that's about that. And oh yeah, don't turn into the wind when you're on fire. It is a little bit embarrassing now if I say that out loud, that I say I learned these things, because I mean they are kind of like self-explanatory, but you know, it has to be said. It has to be said. Yeah, that's boat. That's the history of boat. That's all the pictures that I have. It's like 50 pieces. I should have shown them all now. And that's also the end of my first video where I just talk. My following videos will document the building process of its successor, which would be boat number 3, or Sibylle. No, Sibylla, I forgot. Which, as of now, will incorporate an upgraded steam engine with like a Fleischmann system, the same boiler. It will be completely made out of wood, which is probably not a good idea. It will also have 2 masts with sails and an electric backup engine. It's gonna be such a fucking pain. It's not gonna work. I'm having such a fucking nightmare with this. So I'm going to show you about my nightmare, and you can suffer along. So until then, I'll see ya. Have a nice time. Yeah, that was the boyn't. Fucking hell, this joke is so bad. The boyn't ship white. Bye.